Thank you very much for coming to the media roundtable today. We have a very exciting week and a very exciting few days leading up to the WBC and IBF World Title fight Friday night for the 168-pound super middleweight titles between champion Nikki Adler and our hometown girl Claressa Shields. This is a hell of a time for women in boxing and women in combat sports and sports in general. Seldom in the past has there been such a strong lineup of powerhouses like we have today. The two women that are featured in the fight Friday night and the two women that are here joining us today. To my right and your left is a woman who her name is Christina, but she goes by the name of Cyborg, Cris Cyborg to many. I'm sure most of you, if not all of you, know her. She just had a magnificent victory and got the title that she wanted for so long. She doesn't have it with her, but somewhere she's got a beautiful piece of jewelry called the UFC Featherweight Championship belt. And Cris is a big boxing fan. She works, trains in all the disciplines of mixed martial arts, and whereas most athletes have a particular strength, Cris is such a competitor. Her goal is to be the best in the world at each of the disciplines in MMA, and that brought her recently to train with Claressa Shields, and they have a wonderful bond together, and it's a great combination, particularly here in the United States, to show the power of women in sports today. To my left, to your right, is Christina Hammer, who has come here all the way from Germany. Christina is a magnificent 160-pound middleweight champion of the WBC and WBO. Undefeated, 21-0, 9 knockouts.
Right.
And I'm sure many of the other 11 were pretty close to going too. Somehow they made it through to the final bell. Christina has a very a tremendous amateur background. Again, 21-0 undefeated as a pro. She is here to get an up-close look at Claressa Shields in the ring. And we make no bones about the fact that if Claressa is successful Friday night against Nikki Adler, that at some point in the future, we hope to see Claressa and Christina in the ring for what, at the time when that fight prospectively takes place, would be not only the biggest fight in women's boxing, but probably one of the biggest fights in boxing, period, and one of the biggest fights in history for women's boxing. So we're very excited to have both Cris and Christina with us here today. Cris Cyborg will be walking Claressa Shields into the ring Friday night. She's part of Team Shields. We're working on the tailoring of her uniform right now, so we can make it fit appropriately. Christina Hammer will be at ringside with her championship belts, and I'm sure if Claressa Shields wins that fight, Christina would love to let Claressa know that she's got a couple of belts that she should be coming for at some point in the future too. So it'll be a lot of fun, a lot of excitement, a lot of power, and it's all about women power. So we're going to turn it over to all of you to ask questions, and we'll share this microphone. So just raise your hand and go ahead.
What have you seen from Claressa? What do you like about her, and what does she do well?
When I asked for training with Claressa, I asked her for can improve my boxing. I think the best thing to train with the best the world 140. I think her division boxing, and I think she's faster. I think she's gonna win tomorrow. And she's fast, she's talented, she has a lot of fight, and she'll be confident she'll be home.
Is boxing one of those disciplines that you're gonna go after too?
I really like boxing, and why not? If I have the opportunity, McGregor opened the door for MMA fighters, gonna be boxing. Maybe if you have the opportunity, for sure. Of course, I need to train more, learn more. And I'm starting, I want to get better in my boxing, and I think start training with Claressa, I'm gonna improve my game, and maybe one day I can have the opportunity.
ahead. Oh, go ahead, yes.
I'm curious as to your relationship with Clarissa and how it really developed aside from the sport. It seems like you guys really have a connection. And what does it mean that you were able to be here, you know, a week after your fight for your fight?
You know, I follow her before when she went to Brazil for Olympics 2016, and people love her in Brazil. And I started watching more, reading more about her. And I think we have a lot of things common. You know, she fights with her heart, and I think she's having a hard time when she's teenager too. And we have a lot of things in common. And she's fighting with her heart. And I really usually don't train with girls, and I train more with guys. And her will be the first girl I train, and I think she's very challenged for me. And you know, it'll be amazing. You know, we can be better than each other. And I told her maybe next camp I can come to Michigan and train for her. There's one camp just boxing. I think I'm going to improve a lot of my game, and there'll be a lot of experience for me.
Now, maybe sometime down the road, if Clarissa conquers everything she wants to conquer in the boxing ring, you see her making a move to the other side, to the MMA.
Yes, maybe she can find one. She's young, you know, she's 22 years old. I think she's having a long journey, and maybe for sure the women's MMA growing, like boxing women's growing too. Maybe she would like it, be a pleasure for me, you know, help her, and you know, we may start stand up and have to hold the hands first for go to the ground, and for sure I think she'll be great.
Let me translate that answer. What she said was no. Clarissa will be sticking with boxing, and she has no desire to fight Cris Cyborg in the MMA cage as well.
You know, the big thing maybe they open the division 165, because the one thing I was fighting, I think the girls have to have the same opportunity guys have all divisions same the guys have. And Clarissa, she's 168, 65 pound, and maybe they open her division, but for sure she's gonna keep in boxing. But I'm just saying I can be pressured, you know, one day this happen.
Hammer, you fought on some of the biggest stages in Europe. You've now suggested your interest in fighting in the U.S., like Breckhouse has. Katie Taylor has come over here. Adler's now here. What is the enticement to fighting here? And I'm assuming if Friday goes to plan, it may be here in Detroit.
Yeah, I'm very glad to be here, and I'm here to watch the fight tomorrow and see Clarissa wins. And I give my comments from this fight, and I'm sure that she's winning. And I watch to fight against her.
What are you looking for in coming and fighting here? Is there something that you're seeking in the American stage?
Yes, in America it's the biggest stage, and I want to fight here in the US. Maybe I can fight this year in New York, maybe, and I like to be here.
Okay, quick question for you, Christina. What type of fight do you expect? I value your opinion versus Adler versus Shields tomorrow. How do you expect the fight to turn out, and what kind of action do you expect from these two girls?
What I'm
Sure, I'm sorry. Yeah, so the question was, how do you see the fight going Friday night? You know, how do you see each fighter performing? What type of style and action, and then what do you see as the outcome of the fight?
I think Nikki Adler is very slow, and she's very straight and don't use her reach. And I think Clarissa beat her easy. Maybe she can do a knockout. I hope so. But she's not so flexible, and I think Clarissa beat her easy.
Cris, UFC 218's coming to Detroit at our brand new stadium. Are you going to try to be on the card?
I would like it, and then I asked her for a fight, Holly Holm, and I think it would be perfect. She's come from boxing, maybe Detroit. Yes,
Is that in
I'm
the
ready
works?
for
Are
it.
you guys trying to do that?
I'm asking for it. Let's see what's gonna happen. Donna, he did the interview, say we would like to make Cyber in the Holly Holm, and maybe it can be Detroit. It'd be nice. Yes.
What would it mean to fight here with all the Clarissa's fans here? They'd obviously be your fans because you guys are friends. What would it mean to have all that extra fan?
You're gonna be Cyborg Nation fans with Clarissa Shield fans in Detroit. Yes, everywhere.
Cameron, how do you see yourself matching up with Clarissa Shields?
I'm taller than her, I'm faster, and I have more experience. I'm undefeated 7 years, and I have 21 fights, so that's all.
When would you like that fight to take place if everything goes to plan tomorrow?
When would you like the fight to take?
I think Clarissa needs more time. Maybe we can fight next year each other. So, if she wanted.
You can see she's a little bit competitive.
I think she wanted
A little competitive. Yes, go ahead.
Question for Cris Cyborg. You're a boxing fan, and obviously in the MMA world with UFC. Give us your thoughts on Floyd Mayweather and Conor McGregor odds.
Question was, with Chris's background and knowledge in the MMA world, give us your thoughts on how you see the Mayweather-McGregor match shaping up.
You know, one thing I respect McGregor because he's opened the door for women fighter and MMA fight boxing, but I don't think I don't think he can be danger anything for Mayweather. I think Mayweather gonna take his fight, and I think because Mayweather did this all his career, and then it's very different boxing training for mixed martial arts. It's very different, training like dedicated like people say me. I have to train like everything. And I think he can do anything. I think they're gonna be very successful and the show prove he's the legend in boxing.
So I have to say, it's very refreshing to get the straightforward, honest comments from these two women. You have the champion from Germany who articulated very clearly why her fellow German champion at a higher weight class can't win Friday night, and Cris Cyborg, who just told us why Conor McGregor can't beat Floyd Mayweather. So straight talk's a good thing. More questions?
Question for you, Mark. Clarissa Shields obviously is growing women's boxing. This is a great venue, MGM Grand, but you got to be 21 and older to attend. Do you have visions of arenas in which younger fans can actually come see her, or how do you deal with that in boxing with the 21 and older casinos?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's about the choice of venues, size, the age limits of people who can come in, etc. So this is a very carefully thought out plan that my partner and co-manager Jamie Fritz and I, along with promoter Dimitri Salita, discuss regularly. It's very important for a boxer to have a home base. You have to have a place where your core of energy emanates from, and it sends out all those great messages that creates a national stardom. Having grown up in Flint, Michigan, Detroit is the perfect place for Clarissa Shields to have her home base, and we're really proud to have her be a figure in the community. Now, I've spent many years, 25 years in the sport of boxing, and did nearly 100 fights with the MGM Grand in Las Vegas. I love the MGM brand, I love the MGM management, and we're particularly fortunate to, at this stage of Clarissa's career, to have such a wonderful hotel and venue here with the MGM Grand in Detroit. It's a perfect match right now for Clarissa Shields. However, as you pointed out, we want to be able to be, with broader audiences. We clearly have our eye on and love the fact that there's a new arena to be opened soon here. In fact, Cris Cyborg may be getting into that arena, pretty quickly, because I believe it'll be opening in the fall before the prospective UFC match happens at the end of the year. Where the Pistons and the Red Wings will play is where we would love Clarissa Shields to be fighting at the right time, but clearly we're progressing and moving toward that. It's a wonderful expansion of the home base opportunity. And then, at some point, You know, there will also be, you know, we're going to move to, we want her to be in New York, we want her to be in Los Angeles, we want her to be in Las Vegas, and she'll have those opportunities. But it's all part of the clear growth plan, one step at a time. But thanks a lot. Great question. Yeah.
Question for Cris Cyborg. With you being connected with Clarissa and the Mayweather McGregor fight, do you see the line between the two sports becoming more blurred and a lot more athletes crossing one way or the other in the future?
Yeah, the question, just for everyone heard, was because of the Mayweather-McGregor fight, do you see the lines between boxing and MMA being blurred and athletes crossing over from one side to the other?
You know, I think men's MMA will start like this because women's MMA just starting to, and have some people good judo against some people from good boxing, and I think when you see after that fight, Mayweather McGregor gonna open the door for the girls coming from boxing for MMA or MMA do boxing and they do other, you know, arts for fighting and for getting better at the sport. I think gonna open the opportunity, and I'm happy for be pioneer this and I'll have girls like Clarissa, like her, you know, be amazing fights and open the door for the girls.
Yeah, go ahead.
Christina, you've done a phenomenal job at marketing yourself here, abroad. You're here in New York kind of often. How do you see yourself in the public eye of Americans? Are people starting to recognize you?
I hope so. I want to do a good job, and I tested now here for this fight to watch it and to see how the American guys like me or not. I think it likes it good, and I want to fight more in the U.S.
Yeah, let me say, I mean, I've had many conversations with Christina's team and with Harold Pia, who's here, her manager, and we see eye to eye on a lot of fronts, including the importance of marketing and promotion to lift women's boxing. Christina Hammer is a tremendous ambassador for the sport of women's boxing. She's a great athlete, she's very intelligent, very savvy, very articulate. There's a reason that sponsors are working with her, and she happens to have one of her U.S. sponsor representatives here for the fight as well. And Christina has made it very well known that she wants to invade the U.S. because she knows what the market has. And frankly, you know, if you look at boxing, for example, fighters like Canelo Alvarez from Mexico, Gennady Golovkin, American fans love great fighters and people who fight. They may use their fists, but honestly, it all comes from here. It all comes from their heart. And Christina Hammer is that kind of fighter. And I think the American public is very quickly going to love what they see, and that's why we are building a road to the fight. She very savvily claims that Claressa Shields needs some experience and some fights before she's ready. Maybe she's right, time will tell. But I'd say from my point, from the business point of view, this fight, prospectively, between Hammer and Shields is a true mega fight. And we're not gonna wait too long, and that the public says, you know, you missed the boat, you missed your opportunity, but we're gonna make sure that the public gets to know more about both of these young ladies, and in a period of time, surely within a year or probably less, that fight will take place. But we're proud of our relationship to date with Christina and her team.
Going back to that, if Hammer, you're saying that you don't feel like she's ready, who should she face? Should it be a Callie Reese or somebody else?
Maybe she can face it, but Kelly Reese was the WBC champion middleweight, but I'm the WBC champ now. I won against her, and so she have to show what he's doing, and she have to show her size.
How do you think she would do with Callie Reese, since you faced her twice?
I think it will be a good fight, so very close. So.
Anybody else?
Go ahead.
Hey, Cris, is this your first time in Michigan, and what do you think about where Shields is from?
Yeah, first time in Detroit, Michigan, and first time in the box fight. And then, you know, I think it's great. I'm gonna, tomorrow night, I'm gonna see all the fans and who follow MMA too. And I'm gonna have more news about today, about this question after tomorrow. And maybe I can be here in December again, but fight, not just to watch.
You know, I don't know how many of you know or recall, but Cris fought, on Showtime once?
Yes.
Yeah, tell them about it.
Yeah, I think the history of MMA, the first belt, 145 pounds, I fought Gina Carano, and you make big numbers in Showtime. And people about Showtime are gonna know about me for sure.
Who else? Yes, go ahead.
Cris Cyborg, you said you and Shields have become good friends. What do you look for in friendship, and what do you see in Shields as a person that makes you want to be around her?
She is the champ. Her mind, she's the champ. And if she say she need more time, she's gonna say no, I don't need time. I can fight you tomorrow. And then I think she's like this, and she's training really hard. And for me, I'm gonna improve my game for boxing. And she's open her mind for help me too, for training. And good partner, good friend. And you have the same goal, keep the champ, defend the belt a lot of times you can. And I think this is big for me together. Same goal.
Cris, as far as Shields' smack talk game, how does that match up with some of the great fighters that you know, and how about the measure against McGregor, if you will?
That's a heck of a bar.
Well, you know. And does women's boxing need a little bit more of that?
Yeah, his question is, what do you think of Clarissa's
People talk.
silly, crazy talk
Yeah.
compared to some of the other fighters you know, like Conor McGregor or others?
You know, my style, I don't like to talk too much. You know, I like to fix everything inside the octagon, the ring. But each person have the style. And if you see some people, when you keep talking, you can go inside the mind, their opponent. And some people's works, you know, some people it's weak mind and what you said they're gonna keep think about. But for me, you know, I have different style, but respecting anyone. But the reality, you have to fix the problem inside time. You know, there you don't have talk, you just punch and kick and whatever.
Yeah, go ahead, Steve.
Question for Christina. There's been a lot of talk lately about 2-minute rounds versus 3-minute rounds in women's boxing. Would you prefer, do you see good and bad on both sides?
Yeah, that's the rules, 2 minutes and 10 rounds. I think it's enough to win. We can try it for 3 minutes, but I think 2 minutes works good. And yeah, well, we have to change it.
Steve, I know, have you spoken to Clarissa about that?
I think last time.
Yeah, because Clarissa's point is very interesting to me. I asked her that question, and she said 2 minutes, and I said, oh, is it a conditioning issue? And she said, absolutely not. She said, in a 3-minute round, you don't get, you don't get a full 3 minutes of action. She said, there's a sense of urgency in the 2-minute round that there's no such thing as, well, let me rest for a minute and let me see what I do and let me try to steal the round at the end. In 2 minutes, every second counts. So Clarissa's point of view is a better fight and a more exciting fight will take place with 2-minute rounds, which I had never thought about, but I found really interesting and it appeals to me.
With that said, would you be interested in seeing fights go back to, for the men as well, going from 2-minute rounds and maybe going back to 15 rounds?
I've spent a lot of time in boxing. I don't really have an interest in seeing fights going back to 15 rounds. From a sport perspective, 12 is more than enough. I think what's very interesting is the new younger generation of fans like spurts of action to take place. They like sound bites shorter, they like action shorter, everything in life they prefer shorter. So there's a real question about what's the most appealing format for the next generation of fans. And I think it's very important for boxers to have a sense of urgency about the action that they bring to the ring, because it's very important for the next generation of younger fans to connect to boxing and to appreciate it for the way that they want it consumed. So for that reason, for sure, I don't think 15 rounds. And I think competitively, when you don't get the best of fighters when they're tired. It's such a physically demanding sport. I like the duration to be when the athletes are at their best, to see the true competitiveness and skills between the athletes. And when they're tired and those factors come into play, I just don't think that should be the determinant of the outcome of the match. Anybody else? Sure, go ahead.
Mark, with your experience in boxing, what's the health of boxing, do you think, right now, at this point, overall, men, women, everything? Your views on boxing?
I think that there's incredible opportunity for women's boxing to grow. And that's why, after a long career at HBO, I met with Clarissa Shields and asked if I could work on her team with Jamie. Because of Cris and the women of MMA, women's combat sports are perceived and accepted and respected in a different light. So clearly the stage is there and the door is open. Now, what we need in women's boxing, historically, there were big weight differences between the two fighters the same night. There were too often mismatches and great differences in skills. We need a broader and deeper talent base. But because of people like Clarissa Shields, Christina Hammer, Katie Taylor, who's just come out in others, Michaela Meyer, one of Clarissa's friends and Olympic teammates who recently is about to make her debut with Top Rank, I think that more and more amateur female fighters will be turning professional because there'll be an opportunity for them. With networks like Showtime stepping up and providing the platform, there'll be a place for the great amateur women fighters to go, and I expect over the next few years to see a drastic increase in the quality level and breadth of talent. And when that happens, women's boxing will continue to rise, and like in MMA, I believe will become just as attractive as the men's action, if not more so. Now, on the men's side, what's very important is that there continue to be a strong young base of talent, and most importantly, that in a sport with many, many factions, because of all the different promoters who have self-interest, that the best always fight the best. I had a saying at HBO for many, many years: when the best fight the best, there are no losers, because the public knows what you showed with your heart. Look at Vladimir Klitschko and the way he fought against Anthony Joshua, for example. No one will ever criticize Vladimir Klitschko for having not won that fight. In fact, quite the opposite. They have more respect and admiration for him than ever. I saw his older brother, Vitaly Klitschko, have the same kind of experience when he fought Lennox Lewis. What Vitaly Klitschko showed in that ring in LA, and Steve remembers that fight. Everyone will forever remember, if they've seen that fight, Vitaly Klitschko's performance. If you give of your heart and your courage in the ring, win or lose, the fans can't get enough of you. So as long as in boxing, the promoters continue to have the best fight the best, like you have with Canelo Alvarez and Gennady Golovkin on September 16th, that's how you make a sport attractive to the fans. I will tell you, as you've seen with people like Christina Hammer and Clarissa Shields, like with Nikki Adler, they just want to fight the best. They can't wait to fight. You'll never hear the women boxers of today saying, oh, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do that. They can't wait to fight the best. Clearly with Cris Cyborg and in MMA, it's happening right now. And if Canelo and Golovkin can do, if it does anything, let it show that when the best fight the best, reinforcing there are no losers, and boxing will be in great shape. Any other more questions? So I have one for Christina Hammer. Do you foresee yourself taking residence in the United States at some point along the way to increasing your presence and popularity here? Or do you think that you'll make visits here and maybe do some fights here but continue to live abroad?
It's an interesting question. No, I can say nothing about it. The future will bring it through, and first I want to fight here in the US and show what I can do, and I want to be a long-time champion and fight against Clarissa. Yes, and maybe it's a good option that I be a resident here. So everything is possible in the US.
And by the way, just to be clear, I didn't mean resident as in, when will you become a U.S. citizen? That's, I didn't mean, okay, I just want to make sure that would not be appropriate. Okay, go ahead.
Last
Sure.
question for you, Mark. Really quickly, in Europe, soccer stadiums attendance is up. In America, we compete against a lot of other sports, but it's exciting to see what's going on in Europe. Any vision on where U.S. can reach that level attendance-wise, competing against so many different activities?
Well, we'll cover it because out of respect for both the women that are up here, we'll cover it from both sports perspectives. From an MMA perspective, they're doing a great job filling arenas, 18, 20, 22,000 seats. It's not something that happens once a year. It happens fairly regularly. The younger fans have clearly run to that sport, and they follow it, and they do very well with it. So, kudos to the folks that are involved in doing that for MMA, and and those of us in boxing strive to do the same. In boxing in the United States, we're finding more and more that, again, if the right matches are made, if the best are fighting the best, the fans come out. Madison Square Garden and Barclays Center in New York are regularly putting 15 to 20,000 or more people in the seats for those events, more so than happened in years past, and I was thrilled to see that. If you go to Los Angeles, they have some smaller arenas there that, the Home Depot Center, for example, that put 7,000 to 10,000 people in the seats regularly, and Staples Center, as well as the newly revitalized LA Forum, are putting 15,000 to 20,000 people again. It's a matter of putting the right fights and the right fighters there. Gennady Golovkin's done a wonderful job selling in Los Angeles. He's also sold well in New York, as have, when Miguel Cotto comes to New York, the fights sell well. If you go to Texas, you can take Canelo Alvarez, Julio Cesar Chavez, and the arenas aren't big enough. There's a reason Jerry Jones is involved. When you feed the right product to the Latino fan base in the United States, you can put 30, 40, 50,000 or more. We did it in Houston with Canelo. It was done in Cowboy Stadium for Manny Pacquiao. It just requires the right fighters in the right cities and in the right matchups. And we can do here in the United States what happens in those soccer stadiums overseas. In the 25 years I was at HBO, I always looked at soccer and said, we got to do more of that. And as the promoters brought, even Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., for example, came here to the United States and fought more, not just in Mexico. Stadiums were filled there. Barrera, Morales, and Marquez were putting 15,000, 20,000 people, in the arenas regularly. And again, it wasn't just the Latino weddings. Floyd Mayweather was filling up arenas for 15 to 20 fights. Tito Trinidad, was filling up in New York, followed by Miguel Cotto. So, I think boxing has learned, and the promoters are being savvy about it, and all they need to do is break down the barriers between them, not see themselves as 8 separate nations, but as one common sport. And I think you can regularly see arenas filled all year round for boxing, as you see for MMA. We're good. Okay. So then we're gonna, unless there's another question, we'll wrap it up. I thank you for coming. I thank you for giving your time to these 2 accomplished athletes, and I thank these 2 women for their time as well. Thank you.